Y a tant de choses qui nous attrisent, tant de choses qui nous font mal. On nous dira, c'est pas possible, je trouve ça un peu sale. Et sur les ondes de l'aurore, j'entends la haine mais plus encore. Au lieu de changer de décor, ça pipe sur ce sort. Besoin de changer d'air, de remettre à l'ennui. Besoin de décibels jusqu'au bout de l'envie. Car c'est une attitude de vivre et penser. Car c'est une habitude, je ne peux plus m'en passer. Car c'est ma solitude pour la partager. Car c'est une attitude. Car c'est une attitude de vivre et penser. Car c'est une habitude, je ne peux plus m'en passer. Car c'est ma solitude. Car c'est une attitude.
Streaming con todos los participantes, así que si nos importamos, hacemos el cambio, ¿vale? So, welcome everyone and congratulations to you all to being finalists of the South Summit, to be the ones selected to represent the talent, the innovation, the technology and entrepreneurship in the South and all the opportunities that represent. The South Summit, as you know, is a unique initiative to bring together some of the most promising startups. Not used to this. Some of the most promising startups from Spain, but also from Southern Europe, Mediterranean, and Latin America, with top-tier international investors like we have confirmed Axel Partners, Sequoia, Balderton, DFJ Spirit, some Silicon Valley funds such as Partner Ventures and Softtech VC. There's 500 startups coming, represented not only by Dave McClure, but also Betty Young from Latin America. And we also give you the chance and exposure in front of some of the leading corporations, and not just as main sponsors who are there paying for the party. They're there, they're going to be here as active players of the whole ecosystem through their innovation or ventures departments. So the opportunities of networking and gathering opportunities in terms of partnerships, investment, or just clients is tremendous. So you have been selected among, we received 3,000 projects. From those, around 1,500 got into the competition. And there has been around 100, and you are guys amongst them. So congratulations for being here. And so now we have to get ready for the big day, for the South Summit, which is going to take place on the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th, which is going to be the award ceremony at Las Ventas, like a unique venue for such an event. And you will all have the opportunity to pitch in front of international investors and key players from the ecosystem. So we wanted to give you the opportunity to hear and work together on your pitch, your doubts, and how to just show the people, show the investors, show the corporate, show the attendees how awesome your project is and how needed and how an opportunity it represents. So I leave you with Alex Barrera, who is editor at tech.eu, founder of Press 42, Tetuan Valley, and huge leads. He's going to introduce himself. He's going to help you guys build your story, tell your story, and have an amazing elevator pitch on the 8th and on the 9th. So I leave you to them, and I'm going to stay here for a while, then I'm going to leave to try and track and cap more investors. So I guess you prefer me to be there than actually being here. But I'm really happy to have you all here, and those who are following this on streaming, looking forward to meet you in Madrid. Okay? Thank you.
There we go. I don't know if this is very low now. You can hear me? Okay, great. I hate sitting down, so I'm gonna move. You guys hear the streaming. If I move too fast, just tweet about it and you'll say, okay, I'll stop moving. So first of all, thank you everyone for being here, because I know it's painful to, physically go somewhere nowadays, and reserving the time to coming to this kind of stuff. As Sophia said, the goal of this whole, training and talks and one-to-one talks is essentially to get the best of your presentations. Okay, we're Spaniards, most of us, and beyond Spaniards, we have people from South America, people from Southern Europe, and in general, Southern Europeans, Latin people, we're awesome when it comes to partying, but we're very bad at presenting stuff. We're very bad at telling what's good coming from our countries, coming from our cultures, etc. So we're going to try to change that, and hopefully we'll change that. So without further ado, I titled this presentation, I normally title it Startup Storytelling and things like that, but today I thought it was interesting to change it. Because I want you to think this way. I want you to think in terms of showing people what you're doing and not just telling them what you're building. Okay, I'm building this, I'm doing this app, I'm doing this mobile, whatever, but actually I want you to show them. It's much better to let them touch it, even with your voice, even with your words and with your images, than actually saying, okay, this is our app, this is our service, whatever it is. So very fast, I've been in the startup world for quite some time. Started several companies. I was part of the 20 team, part of a VC firm, started 2 startup accelerators. I was part of the editing team of The Kernel, now co-founding and associate editor at tech.eu, part of the Global Shaper community from the World Economic Forum, and Press 42, which is my day-to-day job and the one that pays the bills, basically. So everything else is fun and dandy and very nice, but the one that pays the bill is that one. So I've been doing this for more than 11 years. So I've been on the stage for a long time, and I've been working with a lot of startups, and it still fascinates me how many incredible projects you keep bumping into, and how many of them actually fail because they weren't able to explain what they were doing. Now, this is the usual demo day. Okay, this is the usual thing you're gonna see for most startups. So either you are part of a VC, so you have investment from a VC, you're part of their portfolio, and they put you on a stage to present to further investors, or you're part of a startup accelerator, or you're part of an incubator, or you're part of a conference like this one. And at one point, you're going to be on a stage, and you're going to have to pitch whatever you do. And there are many ways of doing it. This is Techstars. This is 500 Startup. That's Dave McClure. I'm not going to wear a mask. Could. That would be fun. Maybe we should at some point. This is Startup Chile. But there's something that's common to all of them. And it happens absolutely every single time. And every single time, there's a point in the presentations that you take your mobile phone out. There's a moment in those presentations, maybe not with the first one, maybe not with the second one, maybe not with the third one, but around the 4th or the 5th one, you take your phone out and you start checking your email and you start checking Twitter. And the problem is not that. The problem is not that you're pitching out there and you're seeing the investors taking their phones out and you're thinking, am I fucking up my presentation? Am I not being interesting enough? And you see the guys like tweeting and checking at you and then keeps tweeting and you go like, something is wrong here. The problem is not that. The problem is when they start sleeping, okay? You think the Twitter thing was bad, then it gets to a point where you start going like this, like half seeing, half hearing. But that's not even the problem. The problem is when the guy next to them starts sleeping too, then you have a problem. And this is the common thing, the common theme happening in every single demo day, in every single conference. There's always the same concept. There's always a point where people just disconnect. It's too much for them. And of course, you want to kill yourself. I mean, there's that point, when you've been a jury for as long as I've been, you already recognize the symptoms. It gets to a point where you just see the guy going on stage, and you think, oh my God, I'm going to want to kill me after this one. And of course, there's a point where I think we should do this at some point. We should put some spoons next to the jury, because at one point you want to get the spoon and take your eyes out, because it's so horrible, it's so bad, it's so boring that, that you just want to leave. And that's bad. It shouldn't be like that. I mean, for me, it's surprising that you guys are doing amazing stuff and that you cannot actually convey that emotion. I remember once in, where were we? In Romania. We were in a conference in Romania, and I was with in the jury with Mike Butcher, the editor of TechCrunch Europe. And after like 15 startups, we were sitting there, after 15 startups, this guy comes on stage, and he gets on the stage and he goes like, okay, let me talk about my startup. And I was like, what is wrong with this guy? And I remember grabbing the bottle of water and saying, we should throw him this. And of course, if you've ever met Mike, you will know that you cannot joke with him, okay? So I said that, and he looked at me, he was like, you're right. He grabbed the bottle of water, opened the bottle of water, and literally went on stage and poured the whole bottle on top of the poor guy. And the guy went like, he said like, now, start again, okay? And it was impressive, like, you're pitching your startup, and you're like, oh, shit, I have to be here again and talk about this stuff. It's like, come on, man. You should be passionate about what you're building. You should be passionate about what you're doing. Now, I'm going to give you a broad framework on the 10 questions that the people sitting there are going to have, okay? If you answer these 10 questions, then you're going to get more, okay? That never fails. So you're always going to get someone that's going to raise their hand, and he's going to go, okay, so what about blah, blah, blah? What about Groupon? What about blah, blah, blah? Facebook, Google, whatever. You're always going to get questions. But the point is, it's unacceptable to go on a stage and not answer the 10 most well-known questions about your business. Essentially, a lot of people, when they talk about this, they say, okay, so you just prepare people for pitching. And say, you miss the point. This is not about pitching. I don't care about pitching. What's important is the fact that what you're going to answer here is 100% your business. If you're unable to answer one of those 10 questions about your business, you shouldn't be doing your business. It's as simple as that. So this is essentially a fast track explanation of your business model, of your business, of what you're doing. If you cannot go for 5 minutes and explain to people what your business is about, then you shouldn't be doing this. Okay, so I always take the structure out of a book that's called The Art of Start, that it's highly recommendable by a guy named Guy Kawasaki. And in the book, he talks about what he calls the 10-20-30 rule. And he always talks about a perfect presentation should be 10 concepts, 10 questions, with 20 slides and like 30-point fonts. And it's interesting, the 30-point font part, because people just don't get this. It's like, why would he say that? And his reasoning is actually extremely amazing, and I think most people fail to see this. If I ask you, what do you think is the average age of an investor? What would be your answer? 60, 50, 65? So who can answer me, what happens when you're above 50? Huh? You don't see well. Your eyes get fucked up, okay? It's called aging. So the point is, if you go on a stage and you put a presentation with font 10, they're gonna hate you. And if I'm sitting 3 rows from the stage, I'm not gonna be able to read it. And if I cannot read it, I'll stop listening to whatever you're saying, okay? So these tiny things make a difference. Now, I'm going to go through the structure. It's slightly modified after a lot of working on it. What I want you to understand about it is that it's a framework. It's not presentations should be like this. It's a guide on the kind of answers you should answer in your presentation. You are free to change it. You're free to permutate any element. But be careful, because there is a reason to this kind of structure, okay? And we're going to go over it. So these are the 10 points that your presentation should have. I don't care where, or where. I do care where, and I'll go over it right now. But the point is, you have to answer these questions. If you go on a stage and you don't tell me how you're going to make money, you're fucked up. If you go on a stage and I don't understand what the fuck are you doing, you're fucked, okay? I remember once with Luis Martin Caviades, one of our top angels and investors here, we were at a investor presentation forum, and there was this guy on stage, super energetic guy. I'm this and this, and we're going to do this and this and this. And after like 15 minutes into the presentation, Luis leans on me and he goes like, do you know what he's talking about? And I'm like, no fucking idea, but just keep nodding. And both of us were going like, yeah, interesting, okay? We had no idea what he was talking about. That's the worst thing that can happen to your presentation, okay? So some of these things are obvious, some are not that obvious, okay? I'm going to go through all of them, so you get a little bit of the drill. The point of this exercise today is that you get a broad idea of how your presentation should look like, what you shouldn't miss in your presentation. Now, then we're going to do one-to-ones, and you're going to pitch me, okay? And we're going to go through your specific presentation, seeing which things work, which things don't work, etc., okay? So first one, number one, the problem. I think this is the part where most presentations fail miserably. And it's surprising because it's the first thing that you should tell me is, what the heck are you solving? Why should I give a fuck about what you're saying? Because remember, I've been sitting there for an hour and a half listening to bullshit, one startup after the other one. Now, why should I listen to what you're telling me? Why is it important? Why have you devoted your life to it? There has to be a reason. If your startups started because you decided one day that, I want to do a startup, it's now trendy. I always joke with this. Like 5 years ago, you said you were an entrepreneur, and people would spit at you. They would go like, oh. There was a famous quote from Ted Turner that said something like, entrepreneur is what you call someone that is unemployed, okay? Now fast forward like 5-6 years, now you go to the most expensive club in the city, in any city, and you say, hey, they'll stop you at the door, and they go like, are you on the list? You go like, bitch, I'm entrepreneur. And they go like, oh, please come in. How many starters do you have? 3? Oh, please come in. There's a bottle of champagne there, okay? It's not that far-fetched, to be honest. But the point here is that there's a lot of startups, there's a lot of people coming into the entrepreneurial arena. So the point is, why are you different? Why should I care about what you're talking about? This isn't about trendiness. This is not about, I got kicked out of my job and now I decided to do a startup. You should be solving something that's fucking painful. The more painful, the best. So the first thing that you have to tell me is, this is fucking painful. This is what we're solving, okay? If you don't tell me that, you're screwed. You just destroyed your whole presentation. And trust me when I tell you, no matter how many times I tell you this, you'll still fuck your presentation, okay? I know this whole talk, it's super frustrating for me because I keep giving it every single time. And every single time I keep telling you, you're going to make these mistakes. You're going to fuck it up here. Remember this talk. Yeah, sure. I see all of you taking pictures with your phones, taking notes. And then I see your presentation, and the first thing I see is, what the fuck? Where is the problem? Okay, so remember this. I know, I keep trying. I don't know how many, I should change this somehow, but one day, hopefully everyone will get it right, okay? So the problem, number one thing that you should get solved, I keep telling people, you get it upside down every single time. You start at the wrong part of the equation. Every single presentation we will see this week, probably not every one, but I'll probably guess that around 90% of the presentations I'm going to see this week are going to start with, so we're building this social mobile app that does this, this, and this. Wrong. That's what you're building. I'm not asking you what are you building. I'm asking you what are you solving. Very different question, okay? Everyone will get it wrong. Remember this. Example. Microsoft. You know, beautiful website, Microsoft Surface. You go to their website, you have the link there. This is an experiment I did once to show you how different people present their products or their services. You go to the website and what you read is body of a tablet, heart of a laptop. Oh yeah, that's super sexy. I have this discussion with the Microsoft people. They keep telling me they have a marketing team. I really think they don't. I mean, I think they have this cardboard guy there and, you know, a couple of interns, and they put a sign outside and say marketing team or something like that. This is, you start reading the description and it's USB, micro SD, HD, AV, and you go like, what is this? This is what we do. We do a Surface, and it has all these capabilities. If you've been long enough doing this, you'll clearly recognize the mark of an engineer here, okay? No engineer could have done this better. Well, maybe they could, okay? They could have put some code in it, and it would be complete, okay? But yeah, probably someone in marketing said, let's remove the code. Might not be a good idea, okay? Now, this is what most tech people think. They think that talking about our tech capabilities is fucking awesome. It's like, you know, we're gonna get this thing and we have a distributed system that uses MapReduce to put this into the big data cloud. And if I put more, you know, trend words, the more trend words I use, the better, okay? And then we're using this equation to do this and that. And they are so passionate about this shit. And if you tell them that they are wrong by telling you that, they'll get offended. They'll go like, but you don't get it. It's like, no, you don't get it, okay? I don't give a shit what you think does. Does it solve my problem? I don't care how it does it, as long as it does it. I don't care how fast it is. I don't care what algorithms that you use. I don't care if you use big data or you use a bunch of Chinese people. I don't give a shit. I just want you to solve me the problem, and I'm going to pay you for that. So would you take my money? Now, who can tell me what website is this? Apple. You see that Apple, even though they also do engineering at many stages, the message is totally different. They don't tell you what they do. They tell you why they do it. Why should you buy an iPad? Because we have apps that enrich your life. Why should I buy an iPad? Because it transforms the way your teachers teach you and you as a student learns. Why should I buy an iPad? Because it changed the way you work. Why? 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 What are you solving? Problems in education. What are you solving? Problems in your business. What are you solving? Problems with apps. Okay, problems with your lives. I'm not telling you that the iPad has a microcore, 4 microcores that run at 1.7 gigahertz. When was the last time? How many of you here have actually Apple devices? Raise your hand. Okay, when was the last time you actually checked how fast and what was the technical capabilities of your device beyond how many gigabytes you had? Yes, okay, you're an engineer. There you go. Engineer, physicist, even worse. Okay. Oh, so we have a physicist here. Be careful with physicists. You know, I can actually identify slides depending on your profession. If you're a physicist, your slides will look blue and white, or blue and yellow. Depends on the kind of branch in physics. Okay, nice, nice. Good to know. My point here is, do you see the stark difference between Microsoft and Apple? The message is totally different. And the fact is that you guys are customers, and you don't care about how it does it as long as it does it. I don't care how you do the multi-touch thing as long as it works. And when you now get one of those cheap Chinese tablets that don't have multi-touch or are really hard to use, you'll get pissed because it doesn't work. But I don't think about the technical capabilities behind it. I think about how it's going to solve my problem. So as I said, the most important question you need to answer in any presentation, if there's one thing that you should answer above everything else, is why should I care? Why should the audience care about what you're saying? Now, this is a theory, and I highly recommend you to check this video from Simon Sinek, where he talks about the golden circle, okay? So normally people, and mostly technical people, they'll start explaining what they do, how they do it, and sometimes, miraculously enough, why they do it, okay? But they always start with what? Every time you hear now a pitch, listen closely, and you will hear, I'm doing an app, I'm doing a service, I'm doing a cloud service, I'm doing a big data startup. I'm not asking you what are you doing or how you do it, but why you do it. Now, this is the face that you normally get, because it's like, okay, that's great that you're doing a big data resonance, magnetic resonance startup for whatever, but what are you solving? Now, Apple does it the other way. They start with the why. They tell you how they do it. They very rarely tell you what they do. There is no need. There's no need for Apple to tell you what they do. Now, the second thing that's extremely important in the presentation, which is point number 2 of any presentation, is, of course, okay, I've told you about a problem. I've told you what I'm solving. I'm telling you why you should care about listening to my presentation. Number 2 is, what the fuck are you doing? Now is a point where you say, and this is how we're solving it. And when I say this is how you're solving it, it doesn't mean that you have engineering license to tell me exactly how you're solving it. I still don't give a shit how you solve it, okay? You have to tell me what solution are you putting in place that no one else is putting. What is the solution? In abstract terms, how are you going to solve this problem, okay? If my problem was, I would love to have the, do you remember that we were promised this floating skateboards from Back to the Future? I'm still waiting for them, okay? So I have a problem. I would love to have that stuff. Now, if you have a startup that is into levitational devices, by all means, tell me that your solution, I have your solution to your problem. You don't need a levitation skateboard. I can actually give you an MP plasma generator that will lift you from the floor and you'll be flying around. Okay, pretty cool. I don't need to know how the MP generator works. I don't give a shit. Does it fly? Yeah. Can I have it in different colors? Yeah. I'm in, okay? How much is it? 2 million. Okay, maybe next time. But my point, okay? Solution. How are you solving this? Okay? Now, your solution doesn't fucking include any of those terms. Okay? Or any kind of technical term whatsoever. And no, now your brain is thinking, but I cannot explain what I'm doing without using a technical term. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. I remember once that someone told me, no, but you know, the thing is we're doing an HTML5 application. So we have to use the word HTML5. No one cares. No, you don't. You're doing a website that I can see on my mobile phone too. Oh, can I write that down? Yes, you can. Okay? I always keep telling people, no technical words. If you have technical words, it means that you haven't gone through your presentation long enough. I mean any technical terms. This presentation should be understood by your grandma. I used to say by your mom, but my mom is on Facebook and Twitter, so that's hard. Okay, so your grandma. Or, I don't know, someone in your family that's far detached from technology. If you have someone living on a village that they basically plants potatoes, pitch it to him or her and see how they react. If they don't get it, you're doing it wrong. The goal here is to create the perfect presentation that no matter who you're talking to, it will get understood. Now, there's always this notion that a lot of startups keep having, which is, oh, but you know, we're pitching on the South Summit. Like, Sophia just told us that there's going to be a broad range of investors there. Investors are tech savvy. Wrong. They don't know shit about technology. Actually, I'm still surprised that they're able to invest in technology and get some returns. It's still a shock to me that they managed to get some returns on what some of the things they're doing. Because you know what? You know what's the background of most of the investors? Can someone guess? Business? Not even business. Finance. Fucking finance. Accountants. And they don't even know how to multiply. What the fuck? And these guys are investing? So no, you're expecting those people to know about technology? They don't know shit about technology. Do you know what's the profession of the founder of TechCrunch? TechCrunch, the largest tech publication in the world. Mike Harrington. Who can guess? Lawyer, not even a journalist, a lawyer, a fucking lawyer, built the highest, the most trafficked technology website in the freaking world. Fucking lawyer. Do you think a lawyer knew shit about technology when he started? Obviously now he knows a lot. He's been into technology for a decade now. Of course he knows a lot. But when he started, no fucking way. Okay, so my point is, the people you're gonna have sitting down there not necessarily know technology. Which means that if you're gonna pitch something and you're gonna use tech terms or you're gonna use very specific industry-related terms, you're doing it wrong. Because those people are the ones that need to understand it. And even if they are not the investors, or even if you're not looking for investment, those people are gonna be your prescriptors. So if you're looking for customers, or if you're looking for a provider or a partner, those people sitting there are the ones that are gonna have the friends that you wanna meet. So if that guy sitting there doesn't get it, forget about getting an intro to your real customer. Keep always this in mind, because it's not just about having the right people in the room, but actually having people that have friends that might be the person you're looking for, okay? So keep this in mind. Just if all what I just said doesn't really resonate with you, and you're more, the religious kind of person, every time you say one of those words, God kills a kitten. Just for that, you shouldn't use tech terms. Or the flying spaghetti monster, if someone is extremely religious and they don't like that metaphor, okay? Don't tell tech words. Don't use them. Don't use industry-specific words. Now, here's where, I'm going to touch on this later on, here's where, in these 2 points, problem and solution, where storytelling is essential. Where story is the best tool to explain to people what the problem is and what the solution is. Because as I said at the beginning, my presentation is called Show Me, Don't Tell Me. Don't tell me why you're doing this. Don't tell me what you're doing. Don't tell me how you're doing it. Show me. Tell me a story. Tell me something I can believe. Tell me something I can relate to. And tell me how it ends. And you know what the ending is? My freaking solution. That's the ending of the story. Okay? So keep this in mind. Stories are one of the most valuable tools we have for communication. Human beings are wired for stories. From a neuroscientific point of view, we resonate with story. As a friend of mine recently said, stories are our back doors to our brains. No matter how hard you try not to listen to a story, no matter how many times you've said to yourself, I'm very tough, I'm not gonna cry, I'm not gonna cry, I'm not gonna cry, you will end up crying. You will end up being moved by a story, no matter who you are. Well, maybe you don't cry if you're a psychopath, 4% of everyone, okay? So maybe you're a full psychopath and it doesn't work with you, but if you're not a psychopath, stories will move you every single time. Pretty high, actually, but even still, I mean, it's funny when people think about stories and they go like, yeah, but that's not professional. It's like, well, yeah, but it works every time. And you can make a story using data. This is always a question I always get. It's like, yeah, but I have a lot of data. How can I tell a story with the data? So you can. If you want, afterwards we can go deep into that if any of you have that specific problem. But I just want you to remember, stories are there to help you. Stories are the perfect mechanism to explain your problem and your solution. Actually, the hardest part is to use story all around the 10 points I'm going to talk about. You can do it, but it's extremely hard. But these two are extremely easy to use with story, okay? Just an example of what a story looks like.
我们这支乐队可以说很有实验性。我们想找到一些不一样的方法来创作音乐。我觉得不一样的东西，也只不过我们胆子大了一些，我们不害怕，我们想打破风格和技术的界限。这也是做音乐最有意思的地方，在哪里我都能发现音乐，而 iPad 让我不会错过它们。
你在干嘛？我在录一个。
我会把任何能启发到我的声音都记录下来，使它们成为我们音乐的素材。在现场演出的时候，有了 iPad， 我就有了极大的自由。我可以用肢体动作来创造音乐的变化。甚至可以走到观众里面去，真正让他们和我们的音乐融为一体。但这一切只是个开始，下一个节拍，下一个声音，下一个等待着我们去创作的音乐，这些才是让我们将自己对音乐最初的那种爱一直保持下去的原动力。
Okay, even though I have an Apple, but I also have Android. My point here is, tell me a story. Show it to me. Show me your product. Show me the problem. Show me the solution. Don't tell me. They don't talk about the iPad. He tells a story of a concert. You could argue that it's not that subtle, but still, it works. My point is, this is what your presentation should look like. Don't talk about the product. Talk about the story behind your product. Now, a lot of these solutions can be classified in what's called either a vitamin or an aspirin. Have you ever heard this connotation? So, if you're a vitamin, it's because your solution doesn't really has a very clear problem, okay? It's basically something that, as most investors like to put, is nice to have, okay? Oh, so you're building a startup, it's nice to have. You have to be careful because those startups normally tend to fail, most of them. Now, the one that actually makes it big, oh God, that becomes a huge hit, okay? Because suddenly it becomes a nice to have to, oh shit, we need to have this, okay? And there's a very thin line between one or the other. The other one is what's called the aspirin, which is a response to something that's really painful. So when you have a headache, you take an aspirin, okay? So when I have something that's painful in my life, then I use this startup to fix it, or I use this product to fix it. So keep this in mind when you think about your solution. What are you? Are you an aspirin, or are you a vitamin? If you're an aspirin, make it very clear that there's something extremely painful that you're solving. Where is the pain? Look for the pain. There has to be pain there. How many of you recognize this? Apart from Milka? No one? Huh? The Purple Cow from Seth Godin, okay? So the story goes something like, if you went on your car and you went to the countryside and you were looking out of the window and you see a cow what would your reaction be? Would you stop the car and look at the cow? Probably no. You've seen cows before. Okay, a cow, another cow, 3 more cows, a bull, a cow, some sheep, okay? Maybe if you're from the US, where if you don't live in the Midwest, you probably have never seen a cow. Maybe you would stop to see the cow, but most people have seen a cow. So if you see a cow, you're not gonna stop the car and you're gonna start yelling, oh my God, I'm gonna take a selfie with a cow, okay? It's not gonna happen. Now, if you start driving and you see 1 cow, 2 cows, 3 cows, and suddenly you see a fucking purple cow, you're definitely gonna take a selfie with a freaking purple cow. Then you might get hurt, but you'll still have the selfie with a purple cow. Why? Because it's rare. Because rare things and atypical things is what attract our attention. Now, I tell you this because I'm giving you a framework to build a presentation around. Now, if every single one of you follows exactly the same structure, exactly the same rules, you're all gonna be fucking cows, okay? So keep this in mind because you really need to be the freaking purple cow, okay? You need to be the emperor penguin. A good presentation, a high impact presentation, the main difference it has between the rest is that you do things differently. If the rule tells you that you cannot use video, you'll probably use video. They'll probably hate you for it, but you'll be different. If they tell you that you have to wear a specific dress code, you'll fucking be the one wearing the freaking hat. Why? Because it's different. If they tell you there's a lot of respected people in the audience, you cannot swear, you'll fucking swear, okay? And people will remember. My point is, whatever it is, make it different. Listen to the pitches. Listen to how people pitch and make yourself different. Because if you're not different, people are not gonna remember you. And I can tell you this from a personal perspective. I talk with a lot of startups. I see an average of around, depending on the year, between 200 and 400 projects every year. I still have people mailing me or tweeting me, telling me, hey, Alex, do you remember me? No. Can you refresh my memory? Where have we met? And if we had a conversation, I most definitely will remember, as long as you give me the key or the cue to where we met and what we talked about, and then I'll remember. Now, it's literally unavoidable that I literally cannot remember everyone. So you better be the one that I remember. So be different. There's people that are very good at this. And this is not just about the fact of being on the stage. You're going to be on a massive conference, which means that any interaction you're going to have with people should be remarkable. And I was recently watching a video from Seth Godin, and he said a fantastic thing about the word remarkable. Remarkable is not just neat, something cool. Remarkable is something that you make a remark about. You need to be remarkable. You need to be that guy, hopefully not because you're the guy that is constantly trying to pitch to investors. Then you'll be remarkable, but in the wrong way, okay? But you need to be someone positively remarkable. Like, oh, yeah, I talked with that guy. I had this conversation. He had a really nice, interesting idea. He told me that he was going to send me this and that and that. You have to be remembered, okay? Now, number 3, the market. Most people forget this. This is extremely important for investors. I don't care how cool your startup looks like. I don't care you're solving the best problem in the world. I'm an investor, which means that I care about money, which means that I care about how fucking big the pie is. So if you don't tell me that there's money there, and I don't know the niche, then you're screwed. And this happens to a lot of startups. They think that everyone knows the market they're into. And they'll go like, oh, yeah, well, everyone knows the market for, subaquatic big data. Okay. Yeah, sure, maybe someone knows it, but that's not me. And then there's definitely some other people that go the other way. If you're doing a mobile app, you'll see some people that go like, let me explain to you the mobile market. Excuse me? Have you seen that everyone has a freaking mobile phone? Oh, yeah, now smartphones are ruling the world. Okay, thank you. And tablets are the next big thing. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, pretty fucking obvious. Okay, so something in between. If you're dabbling in a market that's not that well known, or even a category, a niche within the mobile industry that's not that well known, talk about it. Now, how do you do this? 2 ways of talking about the market. First one, bottom up. My favorite way of talking about the market, because you normally start at the bottom with your niche market and real data. Not the kind of bullshit that you read at Everest, or the kind of bullshit you will read at the Boston Consulting Group or Gartner or any of those consulting companies. But actually real market data from your startup, from your friends, from other companies, okay? And you start with that and you start compounding all the way to the top, saying, okay, well, if in Argentina we have this amount of customers and they're paying this amount of money, well, Chile is this big and Spain is that big, so if we compound this, we'll end up with a global market of $500 million. My opinion, and this is personal, you'll see many different opinions depending on the investor you talk to. My opinion, best way to do it. Because even though the numbers are smaller, they're much closer to reality, okay? Now, sometimes you cannot do that. Sometimes you don't have market data for whatever reason. Maybe you're doing something so innovative that there's literally nothing there. So you sometimes have to go top down. So you start with one of those bullshit articles, bullshit reports where they go like, the next big thing is going to be big data. And that's going to be worth $3 billion in the US alone. And you take that number and you start doing math with that, which is pretty stupid because it's like, okay, someone just put their finger out and they said, okay, so this year is going to be 3 billion, next year is going to be 4 billion, and oh my God, we are stuck in a crisis. Revision of the predictions. Oh my God, I want to be an analyst. If they can do that, it's amazing. It's like we always get it right, and when we get it wrong, we'll just throw a revision of our predictions. Pretty cool. Okay, so my point is careful with these ones because the real investors won't believe them. They'll go like, okay, now what are your real numbers? So, but sometimes you cannot avoid it. Sometimes there are no numbers. And this is, take it more as an indicator of how big it is. Always translate it to money. How much money it is there to earn for that startup, for the product, for the market, okay? Don't just say, okay, there's this amount of motorbikes. Okay, so how does that translate to money that you're making your company? Okay? Number 4, which is extremely related to market. So if there's $3 billion to be made, why is it that you're the only one here? Typical case of a startup. Do you have competitors? Compete what? No. We're the only ones doing this. Okay, that's a clear check where you go like, you haven't done your research, or you have no fucking idea what I'm talking about when I talk about competitors. When you talk about competitors, you're not talking about someone that's doing exactly the same thing you're doing. I have people that they go like, no, we don't have competitors, and you go like, but you're like Facebook. Oh no, but Facebook has a logo in blue. Okay, and we have the logo in red, and we spell it upside down, so it's book face. Okay, so how are you different? Well, that, different color, man, different design. And you go like, Okay, careful with this. Competitors, there's always competition. Always. And don't be shy to put it out there. Because actually the worst thing that can happen to you on the stage is you going on stage saying, we don't have competition. Actually, the only indirect competition we have is this and this. And then having one of the investors in the jury raising their hand and saying, do you know this guys? No. 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 Well, each of them has raised around a Series A round in the last year of around 8 million, and you don't know any of those 4, which are doing exactly the same thing that you're doing, but in the US. And you go like, okay. And then you look like a fucking retard, okay? So be very careful with this. Don't be shy. Put your competitors. Do your research. If you have to say that there's someone similar to you, say it. There's nothing wrong with that. As long as you're able to defend your startup, as long as you're able to tell the jury, to tell the audience, how are you different from them? That's fine. Put it. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes I even tell startups, you're doing something pretty close to what Google is doing. Oh, no, Google is not our competitors. It's like, excuse me, if Google decides to fart in a weekend, they'll have your startup, okay? So be careful with those kind of statements. Because, of course, Google is your competitor, Apple is your competitor, Facebook is your competitor, Microsoft is your competitor. Of course they are. Because they can build this kind of stuff. Of course, in most cases, they're not going to build it because it's easier for them to buy you, which is why we do startups and why we have corporates in the South Summit. Okay, that's the whole point. But the fact reminds that there are competitors. There's always competition. Put it out there. Now, be very smart about how you differentiate yourself. Now, there's some niches, there's some markets that there's so much money to be made that it's very hard to differentiate yourself. So, social networks. Now, if you're doing something related to a social network, you better have something totally different from Facebook. Because the number one question you're going to get is, so how are you different from Facebook? Okay, and you can hear that coming. You're standing here and you're saying, yeah, and we're solving this relationship problem, and so it's like a social network. The moment you say the word fucking social network, you can hear it coming. It's like you can see the fucker at the end of the room thinking, another fucking Facebook. And you know when he's raising their hand, it's like, fuck, he's gonna kill me on stage. Okay, so make sure that if you are in a very competitive space, you have a very good argument on how you're different. And being different, again, doesn't mean that you have this tiny feature or this different color or this different logo, okay? It's something bigger. Now, I have people that tell you, I'm in a social network, but we do groups better than Facebook. I go like, okay, how much better? Well, better. Okay, but how are you different? Can I do the same thing you're doing with your platform on Facebook? Oh, yeah, but it's more inconvenient. It takes more time. I go like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. So how much more time does it take? And they go like, well, if you do it with our stuff, we have a direct link, so it takes you 30 seconds. It's 30 seconds faster. And you go, okay, let me get this right. So you're telling me that I need to learn a new fucking platform. You're telling me that I need to export my contacts to this new fucking platform just for 30 seconds faster? Fuck you. Okay? That's what the consumer is going to say. The user is going to say, fuck you. Because right now we're used to this kind of bombardment of different startups, different products, doing something kind of similar but slightly different. If you're in one of those competitive niches, you better be really different. Really different. Okay? And make it very clear what things are different and how you're faster, better than the competition. Because as I say, why lie? Everyone knows why you're there, okay? Everyone knows the competition, so just don't lie. They're going to catch you every single time, okay? Be honest. Now, that's a point where technology comes into play. So technology is that part that will hopefully enable you to be different. So one of the things that investors love is when they have a startup that they go like, we have 3 patent pending applications, which for anyone that has been working in the technology world, you will realize that it doesn't really matter shit. But, investors are very happy when they see this. It's like, oh, patents. And you go like, yeah, we don't give a shit, because if Google wants to, take us to court, they're going to win because they have a lot more money than we have. So no matter how rightful we are with our patents, it's very hard to enforce them if you're not a big company. Now, it's true that they like it. And it's true that if you have a secret sauce, you have a secret algorithm, you have a secret architecture that allows you to do something that someone else cannot do, and they cannot compete with you on that, that makes sense. That's powerful. That's what makes you different. I was recently talking with someone that's in the generalist space, and we're discussing where they should take the company. And I told them, well, we live in the information age, or we've been living in the information age. You should go and take the extra step and step into the prediction age and start predicting things. Start predicting where there's going to be a conflict. Start predicting where there's going to be something going wrong in a war. Now, if you know that beforehand, I can move my assets there and cover the news before anyone else. Now, one of the guys in the tech team was saying, yeah, I don't see it. That's not going to make us a lot of money, blah, blah. I said, well, what you don't see is that is strategic advantage. There's something that no fucking news agency can actually pull right now. If you're capable of doing that, you get the pie. Now, is it going to make you money directly? Probably not. Is it going to make you money indirectly? Shit tons of money. Okay? So think about this stuff. Think about what kind of technologies makes the difference. What kind of technologies you are using that can allow you to be different from anyone else. E-commerce is a very interesting space, okay? And I think the next slide will illustrate perfectly what you're talking about. You go to an e-commerce, they're fucking twins. No matter where you go, they suck balls everywhere. Like, it's incredible. I don't get it. After a freaking decade of having e-commerce, and you still cannot search things by category, come on. Have you ever been to the Carrefour supermarket, or Auchan, and all these websites of the supermarkets? They suck balls. It's incredible how you cannot do the most basic stuff. And with e-commerce, it's exactly the same. And so, as you say, what's the difference? There's a magic ingredient. In some cases, design and usability is the difference. A tiny change in design, even a slight change in design, even if it doesn't look like something big, might create a very high impact on people. Just give you an example, the iPod. The iPod wasn't different from the rest, but they did one thing really well, the UX. The usability of that thing was beyond average. And they killed it. Was it technically different? Not at all. It was actually inferior to the competitors. Now, those tiny things, in the case of e-commerce, if it's not design, we could be talking about customer service. Hello, welcome to Zappos. Do you guys know Zappos? The US e-commerce? 2008, in the middle of the largest crisis in the last 2 decades, Zappos was making $1.2 billion selling fucking shoes. Okay? Now, why? Because they have the most outstanding, or one of the most outstanding customer services in the world. Actually, the only reason why people know Zappos is because of the customer service. They have the World Guinness record of the largest customer service call with 8 hours, 30 minutes for a call. No interruption. Okay, so there's many things that you can do to be different. It doesn't need to be, when I talk about technology, I'm not specifically talking about, the tech part, but what makes you different? What kind of algorithms? What kind of magic? What you were saying, magic sauce. It could be design. It could be the way we treat people. We still undervalue how important it is to treat customers well. Customer service, communications, design, those are variables that most startups don't think about, and they make a big difference. They can make the difference between making it or breaking it. Okay? I don't know if I answer your question. Now, so in general, you have to have something that makes you different. Something why people should choose you. And you have to be careful with those fluffy parts, because sometimes it's hard to argue with someone when they're telling you, okay, so you look exactly like Amazon. And you go like, yeah, but we don't shit on our customers. And, it's hard to defend that position. So if you end up being in that situation, make sure you have data to sustain that. Okay? I always tell this with a tale from the business my wife works in. When people go like, oh, your wife is very nice and the shop she runs is very nice. And I go, yeah, what you don't know is that she has one of the highest return rates for VIP clients in the whole company. A company that has shops in more than 52 countries. And Spain, and specifically Madrid, has the highest rate of returning VIP customers. Now, it's very easy that I can tell you, well, what's the difference between Madrid and, Kuwait? Could be well, we sell the same product. We have more or less the same prices. The difference is how I treat people. And the difference is how many returning customers I have. Not just normal returning customers, but VIP returning customers. Actually, I can even give you the stats. 80% of what we make is returning customers. My point is, if you get into that situation, make sure you have good data to back that up, okay? If not, they're gonna whack you. They're gonna go like, yeah, another hippie here saying that design is a cool thing, and you know, because we have a parallax scroll, we're gonna be the shit and we're gonna be better than Google. Not gonna work. Hard evidence. Hard evidence, okay? Now, number 6, this, I will only put one slide, very easy to understand. Okay? Show me the fucking money, okay? It's not logical that you go for 5 minutes on a stage and when you get downstairs, people are still thinking, and how are they gonna make money? Very bad. If they ask you that question, you're dead. Okay, so make sure at one point in your presentation you explain how are you gonna make money. To give you an example, it's very easy. You know, I always say potato, potato, okay? I have a brick, I'll put a price to the brick and I'll sell you the brick. You give me money, I'll give you brick. Business model, okay? It's that easy. It's not that complicated. This is an example of premium business, okay? Well, I'll charge you $12.99 for a month and $120 per year, okay? And with your premium account, you can do this, this, and that. Easy. Don't get super complicated things here. If you have multiple products, talk about the main one. This is something very typical. Maybe it's a startup that's working on 3 or 4 different products, and you put all of them here. Wrong. You're just going to confuse people. Put the one you want to pitch, okay? And put one price, put how you're going to make money. This is what we give you, and this is the amount of money you give me. If you don't have a price tag, that's fine. Just say, we're going to charge you for this, and in exchange, you're going to get that. That's fine. You don't have a price. Okay, you're pretty early. That's okay. If you have a price, definitely put it. Within business model, depending where you're pitching, depending the amount of time you have, depending the structure of the VCs and the kind of questions you might get, I sometimes advise to put some financial information here, okay? Sometimes it's useful, sometimes it's useless, depending on the audience, okay? Now, I'm just putting it here so you get an idea, sometimes the kind of stuff to put here. Apart from the business model, really interesting, especially if you're asking for a lot of money, is your cost structure. Is where are you going to put that money? And if you're asking me for $10 million, what are you going to use them for? Okay, where is the money going to end up going? Okay, so this is a very neat, way of showing, okay, well, the first year we're going to invest in this and that and that. Again, this is very financially oriented. Doesn't need to be like this. I'm just putting it for the sake of argument. If at one point you get that question, maybe a suggestion would be to create those slides and put them at the end. And if you get that question at some point, you can show it. Not all the startups get these questions. Okay, this kind of questions about costs normally come from, as I said, startups that are looking for a lot of money or startups that have very high burning rates. Okay, in those cases is, okay, imagine that you're pitching me Groupon. If you're pitching me Groupon, I fucking want to see the cost structure. Why? Because your growth is not scalable. And I want to see it before I put the money. Then, of course, you have a lot of investors that they don't give a shit, and they'll invest money and they'll lose it. And I won't say which company in Spain is running into that trouble, but we've seen it. Okay, my point is, this is useful for investors, okay? If you're in a closed doors meeting with investors, this slide definitely should be there. The other one, which for me it's basic, is the income one, okay? So you have 3 curves. You have revenue, you have costs, and you have net income. It's very clear here to see how much you're spending, how much you're growing, and how your costs are growing. Now, if the green line starts climbing at the same ratio as your revenue, then you're fucked. Because no VC is going to invest in your company. Because what I want to see as a VC is a flat line in costs and an exponential line in revenues. If you don't have that, your business is not for VC. So if you want to raise money, you might talk with an industrial investor, business angel, hedge fund, whatever. But VCs are looking for high returns. So if you don't have them, don't bother, okay? You can definitely see the break-even point there. So it's a very clear graph. Just by seeing this graph, you can have a feeling of how the business is gonna behave. Now, then you have to believe the numbers though. But that's why I don't put numbers, because what I really want to see the tendency. Okay, I want to see the angles of the graphs. Then again, this one, very financially oriented. Doesn't need to be like that, okay? You could obviate it at some point. Number 7, of course, if I reach this point and I'm still with you in the presentation, so you've told me the problem, you've told me the solution, you've told me that there's money to be made here, and you're telling me how you're going to make the money because you're different from the rest of the sharks trying to get that money, and you're telling me how you're going to make the money. Now it's a point where I'm asking myself, okay, so you're telling me that by year 3, you're going to make 300K. Now, this is like the X-Files. I want to believe, okay? That's a great question. So, the normal answer would be, normally it's around 3 years. Now, depending on how fucked up the investors are, they might ask you for 5 years. Okay, so if you're around investors and they ask you for a 5-year projection, do not get money from them, okay, because they don't know what they're doing. Now, normal VCs, people that are very professional about this, they won't ask beyond 1 year, 6 months, 1 year. But, well, in your case, if you're doing industrial technology, hardware kind of thing, definitely 3-year horizon is the minimum you can actually put, because things don't move that fast in that spaces. Now, if you're in software, if you're in mobile, if you're in any of those niches, you know, beyond 6 months, 1 year, it's stupid. That being said, it's an interesting experiment, and I always tell people, do it. Do projections to 3 years, because you'll see things, okay? Now, if you ever find someone that is asking you for a 5-year projection, you know how this gets solved. It's very easy, okay? You go to your spreadsheet, you click on the column, and you say, copy formula, paste formula, expand it 2 more columns, ta-da, 5 years, okay? Quick solution. You think people don't do this, people do this, okay? So be smart. If you think they're going to ask you that question, in your case, because it's industrial technology, put a slide with 5-year projection at the back. If you get the question is, I have a slide, I'll show you, okay? But beyond 3 years is hard, even right now, even with hardware, because it changes pretty fast. If Apple suddenly comes out with some kind of new device, you might be screwed. Even people that think, oh, but my stuff is industrial thing. That's what Research in Motion BlackBerry makers thought. They said, fucking iPhone, that's for hippies from Cupertino. Who is going to use that in a business environment? Okay? We all know the answer to that. So, and that went really fast. And by really fast, I mean 2 fucking years. So, you know, even in those situations, things can change very fast. So beyond 3 years, it becomes really hard to believe. It's interesting to see the trends, though. So if you're into hardware, industrial design, whatever, 5 years might make more sense, but 3 is a minimum. Okay? Now, if I reach this point and I believe you, and you're telling me you're going to make, well, this is actually a very conservative example, okay? Normally, startups, what they usually say is, we're going to make break-even on 1.5 years, and we're going to make 3 million euros or 10 million euros on year 3. And then you start looking at the VC's faces, and they go like, you're new to this, aren't you? Okay? So it might be true. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying that when you reach this point, you better convince me that you're going to make 10 million in 3 years. Now, it's your call against mine. So you better give me a lot of data here to support how you're going to make 10 million. Now, it could be that at one point you say, yeah, we're going to have 10 million users by the end of the year 3. and I'm gonna laugh at you. And then you're gonna go like, well, actually, one of our co-founders is called Mark Super. Then you laugh at me, okay? But except in those rare occasions, you're gonna get hardball questions here, because here's the point where actually no, I have it here. Oop, here. Here's the point where you have to defend your growth metrics. Okay, so how are you gonna grow? How many users are you gonna have? What are the sales projections? Okay. If you're already operating, you have real data that you can support. You can tell people, okay, so in 3 months we've sold this amount of devices and X amount of money per device, we're making this money. And the trend of the line is growing. So we're approaching the exponential growth of our sales. That's really nice to see. If you have data, put it, because then I believe it. Now, if you don't have any data, you start showing me exponential growth with 10 million users or 20 million devices sold worldwide, I'm gonna laugh at you, okay? So be very sure about what you put here, and be careful, make sure you have a lot of data to back this up. Because the point here is not getting the number right. No one gets the number right. The point here is, if I ask you how you got that number, I want to see a rational explanation behind it. Too many times I've seen startups that when you ask them, why are you making 2 million the first year? They go like, because it was a nice number. And you go like, what? Okay? So people do this stuff all the time. Okay? So be careful. Make sure you have data to back it up. And make sure you have a rational explanation for the kind of numbers you're projecting. No one is going to believe them in the numbers, but I'm going to believe in your rational explanation. So if I see that you don't have any rational explanation, I'm not going to trust you, okay? If I see that you have a rational explanation to it, even if it's flawed, because you might not know all the things that are happening in the market, that's going to work for me. Because don't worry, I'll introduce you to the people that really have that market data, and you'll fix it. But at least you thought about it, okay? At least you went through a process of thinking about that, okay? Now, I would say this is marketing strategy and sales. Now, if you're gonna reach 20 million users or 10 million users, you better tell me how the fuck you're gonna do that. Now, strategy is not this. This is called brute forcing, okay? And brute forcing is what happens in the absence of information. I don't have information, kill them all, okay? Or mass marketing, what we've been experiencing for many years is, I don't know who you are, so I'm gonna put advertising of diapers next to an advertising of the Xbox. Why? Because I have no fucking idea who I'm targeting. Now, we are definitely approaching the point where this is looking more like this. Strategy is this. I don't know if you've ever seen a katana. Has anyone seen a katana here? What's the one thing about the katana that makes it different from any other sword, apart of the form? The waving, it's called the hamon. But there's one thing about the blade that makes it different from any other sword. Sharp where? The tip. The katana is it's a very weird weapon because the sharpest part of the sword is the final 10 centimeters of the blade. I mean, the other part is definitely sharp, but the sharpest part is the tip, and it's normally the hardest part. So the fact is, when you're using a weapon like that, you have to be extremely precise. Okay, and when samurai warriors fought against each other, the space between the armor was half a centimeter. So you had to be very precise to kill someone with that. So my point with this metaphor, okay, is that our marketing should be like a katana. It should be very precise. There's a strategy, and I don't place the blade anywhere. I place it in the right place at the right moment. Okay, and if you're not going to do that, then that's not a strategy. Example, most startups. So what's your marketing strategy? Oh, we're going to do social media. I go like, okay, what are you going to do in social media? social media. Yeah, but you know, social media is a channel. Well, we'll do Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram. Okay, but what are you gonna do there? Tweet, Facebook, put things there? That's not a strategy. Do you see? Most people actually tell you that. Oh, we're gonna use word of mouth. Or my favorite one is we're gonna do viral videos. I go like, okay, how are you gonna do that? I mean, if you know how to do that, why the fuck are you doing this startup? You would make a lot of money by doing viral videos for people. So my point is, there has to be a strategy. I don't want to hear in length what exactly are you going to do, but I want to see that there's something behind it, that you've thought about this, that you know how to reach people, that you have a repeatable process to reach people, okay? Not just, I'm going to use this. How? I have no idea, but I'm going to use this, okay? So it's the same thing with the sword. You don't place the sword anywhere. You place it in a very specific point with a very specific meaning and a very specific timing, okay? Well, this is exactly the same. Strategy. I keep telling people, I was recently doing a project, I'm still doing it with a pretty neat startup. And when I arrived to their office, they had nothing on the walls. And I told the CEO, like, okay, I'm gonna ask you 2 questions. And I want you to answer me truthfully. And I said, number 1 question, what is the one feature that your users use the most? Second question, can you tell me a day in the life of your user? You know what he answered? I think we have some analytics somewhere there, and we might have the data there. Now, after we've been working for a month and a half, like all the office is packed with Post-its and notes and graphs and stuff like that. And it's joyful. Every time I get into the office, it's like, oh my God, I can feel that you're seeing the data. I can feel that you're working with data, that you're really understanding what you're doing, that you have a plausible and a tangible strategy here, okay? So for me, that's a very clear mark. If you don't have shit put on the wall, you're not doing it right. Because the only thing that gets really worked out is those things that you can see. Stuff that you put in a document, that even if it's shared by 15 people, it won't be open all the time. Now, that thing that you see every time you come into the office, there's something that you see every freaking day. Strategy, okay? Number 8, this is a very controversial part because a lot of startup pitching experts, quotes, experts, quotes, will tell you that the first thing that you have to say about your startup is present your team. Have you ever heard this before? Now, I'm going to use facts here to disprove this notion. If I'm sitting there after 10 pitches and you start telling me, okay, we are a Solomo mobile app and this is our team, what do you think I'm going to think? Check my phone? Huh? Flatline? But why? No, but there's a specific reason. Why am I going to disconnect the moment you tell me that? What have you told me at that point? But more than there's no story, what haven't you told me at that point? What do we do? So, can someone please explain to me, why should I fucking care about you being an expert beating deep blue at chess if I don't have any clue what you're building or what you're doing? The point of putting the team is not to put fancy pictures of your friends. The point of putting the team is to show the investors that there's a robust team behind the project that is capable of pulling that off. Now, why would I fucking care that you were, master class at throwing frisbee in 2010 if you're not doing a frisbee startup? I don't care. I don't give a shit. Okay, so my point is, there's a logic explanation why the team comes nearly at the end. You don't put the team at the beginning because you haven't explained to me why the people that are involved in the project should be valuable for the project. Okay? So always remember this. That doesn't mean that you have to put the team on number 8. You could probably put it before that. You can shift it if you want. But always remember that there's a logical chronology to all these points. Okay? Now, example of the team. I'm blah, blah, blah. I'm CEO. I'm founder. I did this and that. Don't tell me that when you were 5, you had a lemonade stand. Don't tell me that you went on Erasmus to whatever place you were and you drank your shit off. I don't care. As long as you're, if you're doing an Erasmus startup, definitely tell me that you went on Erasmus twice and you got super drunk with the major of, Helsinki. Okay, great, because that's going to work on your favor. But if you're not doing an Erasmus, I don't want to see that shit there, okay? So make sure that you make this useful for you. This is for you. This is what's going to help the investors decide, seeing the team and seeing who's behind it and what experience they've had before. Now, if you're doing a fashion startup and there's no one with fashion experience in your team, it's going to smell. Okay? My first question is, so who's going to design this? Oh, we have a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend. Okay? Bullshit. Okay? Bullshit. So make sure that you have the right people. And of course, we're startups. We never have the right people. Okay? So just be honest about it. If you know that you're missing a profile, put it there. Say, change the picture and put a interrogation mark and say, yeah, we need the money to hire a chief designer. We know we need a designer. This is why we're here. Okay? But be brief about this. Also, be nice. Put nice pictures. I see too many startups putting really shitty pictures of their team. If you had someone that has been working 20 years in a consulting firm, do not put the picture from the consulting firm, please. Okay, you'll see the guy is really with a beard and a tie and a suit. Don't put that. Okay, you're a startup. And except in very rare occasions where your target is someone very specific, people don't want to see that. Okay? If I see someone that has been working on a bank for 20 years, oh God. That's a red flag for any startup. I hope we don't have any bankers here. Except if you're doing something in fintech, of course, then makes sense. But my point is, careful with those pictures. If you have a team, take a really nice picture with your office, showcase that you're doing something really fun, that is really cool, okay? This is the moment to shine. This is the moment to show that you're playful, that you're doing something very cool. Now, number 9, this is probably one of the things that people obviate the most. And for me, it's really important, at least in Southern European and South American countries, which is the fact that this tells me how big your dreams are. Now, milestones and projections show me what have you achieved so far, and what are you projecting that you're going to achieve in the next X months, okay? So you're about to release a new app, or you're about to release a new version of your product or your technology, put it there. That's a projection. In 2 months, we will release this. If you had, if you just landed a 4 million euro contract, for God's sake, put it there as a milestone, please, okay? Now, there's 2 versions of this. This is just an example, okay? In January, we did this. This is what normally looks like when you don't have anything. Okay, so when you don't have anything, you'll probably put like, in February, we did our logo. In January, we bought the domain name, okay, because you don't have anything else. Now, the moment you start getting something important, something interesting, start changing this. Typical example I normally get from most startups. Milestones. We've applied to Wyra. February, we were selected by Wyra. We went to Startup Weekend. We launched a beta. We attended the South Summit. Let me be clear. Those are not fucking milestones, okay? That's what you put when you don't have milestones, okay? So the moment you get milestones, change this slide, please. For me, it's hilarious because when you see this, it's like, you don't have customers, don't you? Nope. You don't have product. Nope. How long have you been doing this? 3 weeks. Okay. No more questions. Because you can see that. But most of you, the ones that have reached here, most of you have data. You have milestones, powerful milestones that showcase that what you're building works, that you have traction, that you have customers, that people like what you're doing. Okay, milestones could be, and coming back to your example, milestones could be, you know, we have these customers that are super happy, and these are the comments that they've been saying about us. Those are milestones. Happy customers, returning customers, those are milestones, okay? Now, if you have them, everyone has it. Most of you that are here have it. So use it. Don't be lame. Don't say, we were selected at this startup competition, and that doesn't really mean anything nowadays. 10 years ago, there were 3 freaking startups and 1 competition, so it made sense to put it. Not anymore, okay? Finally, call to action. Actually, your presentation should be riddled with call to actions, okay? Your point with the presentation is you have to tell people the main, or stress the main messages of what you're building, okay? Now, this is something that, to be honest, I think few startups do, which is repeat the name of your startup. This is called, here it comes, branding, okay? I know it's this weird notion, and it feels like that's what marketing dudes do, you know, in their big offices and their big agencies. Well, branding nowadays is extremely important for startups. Because first of all, most of the name of your startups are really hard to pronounce or really hard to remember, which means that help me out. Keep repeating the name of your startup all the time. Oh, and if you ever need anything about stories or storytelling, you call Press 42. If you ever see the guy with the hat, Press 42. If someone tells you a story, you go like, that's a great story. I have to talk with Alex, Press 42. Branding, call to action, okay? Your presentation at least should have 1 call to action at the end. Is why the fuck have I been sitting here for 5 minutes listening to you? Well, this is why. This is why you should care. And I'm gonna repeat to you what I told you at the beginning. This is why you should care about my startup. And this is my startup, and this is why you should remember me, okay? So, first part of call to action. If you're looking for investment, talk about it. We're looking for X amount of money. Now, there's a lot of discussion about putting the pre-money valuation, putting how much you value the company. I'm not gonna go there. Some people like it, some people don't. Some investors will ask for it, some investors won't. So it's useless to discuss this because it's on a case-to-case basis. Now, the horizon is actually important. See, if you're asking for 10 million, how long is that gonna last? Is it for 3 years? Is it for a 10-year horizon? Whatever it is, tell me. If you're asking for money, tell me why you need the money. Where are you gonna use it? Okay, we're gonna hire more people. We're gonna get more servers. We're gonna expand PR efforts. This is actually probably too abstract. Be a little bit more precise. Because this is what everyone tells you. Is why do you need the money? To hire more people, get more machines, and go elsewhere. Okay? So try to be a little bit more specific. I mean, if you're planning on, you know, tackling the US market, if you're planning to tackling the Asian market, say so. Okay? So we're growing our team. We want to open a commercial office in Beijing, so we need the money for that. Okay? I don't give you the exact date because we don't know it. And we might not even open it, but it shows that you've planned ahead of time, okay? Finally, call to action, okay? The kind of messages that you want people to resonate with. This is from an example I built some time ago. It's like, you know, I was telling people about a product in an industry where they have a lot of generic tools. So at the back of the presentation, I said, you know, I repeated the message. Tools are too generic. No tools equals manual working. And I was repeating the message over and over again. So if you're solving a really painful problem, make sure that at the very end you tell people, remember, this is a painful problem. Remember every morning you wake up and you have to do this by hand? Think about us. I want you to go into the shower and think about us. Why? Because the fucking shower is cold. That's why, because we're building this heating system that will heat your water in 1 second. That's why you should remember us, okay? You have to tell them why they should remember you. And repeat it constantly, 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 constantly. That's what's going to get engraved in the brain. Other things you can do, take quotes. You know, here I was talking about B2B. This was actually Jeff is coming to the conference. So pretty neat example. Business to business finally becomes sexy. Past 6 to 12 months, we've started to do more B2B deals from vertical solutions. So another call to action. Why you should invest? Because the top VCs in the valley are investing here too. Different kind of example of call to action, okay? Finally, storytelling needs specific tools, and they're needed, so you got the final words of our story. This is a little bit more cheeky, if you ask me, okay? But different example, okay? I just want you to remember this. The best things about presentations are the beginning and the end. Everything in the middle, people don't remember. So I remember the first joke you did at the beginning, and I remember the final message at the end. So make sure that both those moments are extremely remarkable. Okay? Extremely remarkable. Start with a story, finish with a story. Speaking of stories, I'm going to give a very quick brushes over storytelling. Now, why do you think stories work? It's a very good one, because you can relate to it. They create empathic links, that we say. They give you context. Someone else? They teach you something. Why do you think they teach you things? That's a very good one. That's how we learn. When I started getting deep into storytelling, I was really curious, because everyone keeps saying, you know, stories work, stories are human, you know, we talk in stories. I thought, you know, my expertise is, I did computer science, but I specialized in AI, artificial intelligence, and then I moved to neuroscience. So I thought, you know, there has to be research on why stories work with us. Why are they so powerful? And what are the kind of things that our brain interprets in a story that makes them powerful? So I started researching, and there's actually not that much research, to be honest, which is surprising. The first one is that the reason why it works is because our memories are stored in the brain in the same fashion. So our memories are stored in the brain in a structure that's called causality effect. So there's a cause and there's an effect. Cause, effect, cause, effect. So we normally remember things on one direction, not on the other one. So just to give you an example, who can teach me the alphabet? Who can sing me the 10 first letters of the alphabet? Someone? Huh? Oh, come on, come on. Okay, but sing it, man. Come on. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. We've all gone through this, okay? Now, who's a smart ass that can tell me the alphabet the other way around? Anyone? No one? Maybe someone on the stream. There's always a strange dude that was very bored when they were little and they learned the alphabet the other way around. But the truth is that most people only know it going one way. So that's how memories work. Memories are stored in a specific time sequence, okay? So the reason why stories work so well with us is because they're basically mimicking the way our brain works in terms of storing memories. So if you want people to remember something, tell them a story. Why? Because it will mimic the way our memory works. So that's why it's powerful. It's not powerful because it's like, oh, fluffy and funny and it's great. No, there's a neurological basis to this. People will remember the fucking story. They won't remember anything else. They won't remember the numbers you give them. They won't remember the achievements you got. They will remember the freaking story every single time. I was recently watching a TED video, and they started with a fantastic joke. Say a hitchhiker going through Scotland, and he goes to have a pint on a bar, and there's this old dude there, so they sit down, they start drinking, and the guy at one point goes like, you know, you see this wood here? I did it with my bare hands. I worked for years cutting the wood of the forest, built this thing with my bare hands, And do they know me for McGregor, the woodmaker? No, no. He turns around, he stares at the other window, and he goes, do you see the stone wall there? Built it with my bare hands. Went to the rocks, broke it with my feet. Built the stone wall. Do they know me for McGregor, the stone builder? No. He looks to the other side and he goes like, you see the pier? Built it with my bare hands. Plank by plank, storm after storm. Do they know me for McGregor, the pier builder? No. But man, you fuck one goat. Power of stories. Power of stories. My point here is stories mimic this, and so it's very easy for us to remember it. I will forget everything else except the story. And sometimes it's a story we don't want people to remember. That's a problem. Now, apart from that, there's one thing about stories that is extremely powerful, which is the fact, and this lady here, she did a fantastic presentation where this was extremely well done, which is stories trigger something that's called the mirror neurons. Mirror neurons are a part of our brain that react to things that we're seeing or we are perceiving, even though we're not doing them ourselves. So if you see someone running, your neocortex, the part of the neocortex that triggers the movement area, is going to be triggered by the mirror neurons. And if you put someone in a scan machine, you'll see that the same cortical areas are working on both brains. Now, it's pretty amazing how this works, because it doesn't just work with that. If you see someone sad, your brain immediately resonates with that, and you become sad too. If you see someone happy, this triggers your mirror neurons, and you become happy. Okay? And there's even studies that say that there's a 3-second delay between the storyteller and the audience. If you're telling a good story, in 3 seconds, your brain waves are synced to my brain waves. And if you measure it, the both brain waves go at the same time, in sync, which is pretty amazing. Now, the thing about this is that mirror neurons normally are talked about in the realm of emotions, and stories are riddled with emotions. So when you're talking about an emotion, what happens is the mirror neuron of the audience gets triggered. And the moment it gets triggered, it generates a neurotransmitter that's called, and a hormone that's called oxytocin, that for a lot of people is known as the love hormone. But in the brain, it does something amazing, which is the higher the rate of oxytocin in the brain, the more the human brain trusts the speaker. So the more oxytocin you have, the more you're willing to empathize with that person. So it's a little bit of magic and a little bit of scary, you know, because it's like, what are you telling me? That if I like your stories, that whatever you're telling me, if I ask you now for money, you'll give me money. You're more probable to give me money right now than if we're bumping on the street and I just talk about what I did yesterday. Magic of the brain. Now, the thing about this is not just the fact that people will trust you more. And here, if we're talking about investors, you really want that. Okay, so that's a point. But it's a fact that the more times you tell a story, the more times the mirror neurons trigger and generate oxytocin, they also generate another neurotransmitter that's called dopamine. Those of you that do drugs are pretty much friends with dopamine, okay? Dopamine is the neurotransmitter that creates excitement in the brain. So when you take things like Coke, inhibits the absorption of dopamine, and then you have a dopamine rush in your brain, and that's why you have all these weird people taking drugs, going all excited all around the place, okay? Now, the thing about dopamine is that it generates addiction. The rates of dopamine on your brain generate addiction, which means that the more times you tell stories and the more people are exposed to stories, the more they want. Now, we see it in our age. Do you remember the time where we didn't have so many TV shows? Now, it seems we're glued to the well, I won't say the TV, but more like our laptops, or tablets, whatever is streaming from the BitTorrent thing. okay? And we're glued to this stuff. It's like, oh, have you seen the last Game of Thrones? Oh, you haven't seen it? I still remember. I remember when I went to school and we used to talk about The Simpsons. Do you remember? I used to go back to classes. Oh, you saw yesterday's episode? Oh, it was like the fourth time you saw the same episode, but still, it was funny. Okay, now it's like, oh, have you seen Game of Thrones? Have you seen Bones? Have you seen blah blah blah? Have you seen blah blah blah? We're becoming extremely addicted to stories. Now, this isn't different, and startups shouldn't be different. Actually, telling stories is a way to differentiate yourself. Now, the problem with stories is that most people, when they think about stories, they think about this. They think about Cinderella. They think about Snow White. They think about, I don't know, Aladdin. Now, good stories, are normally invisible. You can tell stories, and I've done this experiment with some people. I've been giving a talk for an hour and a half, and they said, oh, but you didn't tell any stories. And I go like, didn't I? How many stories have I told? People cannot remember. But you've told like 4 or 5 stories, but people cannot remember. So stories don't necessarily need to be fantastic, don't necessarily need to be, like Cinderella. They're very down-to-earth stories that you can tell that are extremely powerful. Now, I'm going to give you 3 ingredients for storytelling. I won't give you more because we don't have more time, basically. Now, beware. Every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Haha. Are you feeling the love here? Okay, storytelling to its purest. This is a problem with storytelling. Stories are very hard for people to define what a story is and why it works and how it works, because very few people actually know this. There's too many creative artists that just tell stories as they pop into their head, which is great. To be a great storyteller, you have to have that kind of skill. But then there's a different skill, which is technique. And most people don't know the technique about storytelling. So most people you ask about, so what a story is about, they'll tell you, it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you go like, oh yeah, this is so useful. And maybe it's me, and I'm an engineer. So, I can wipe my ass with this. This is not useful for me. It's like, how can I put this into place? I can't. Okay, so I'm going to tell you 3 wonderful wisdom from the guru of storytelling. Number 1, very easy. Protagonist, protagonist, protagonist. If your story has no protagonist, it doesn't work. And this is something that any storyteller knows with experience, and any good brand knows, and any product knows. Let's see if you guys have seen this. Do you remember a very old advertising from Coca-Cola Light? Women mostly. Do you remember? Window cleaner was a version of this. The guy that came from the truck. You remember, don't you? What do you remember? What do you remember about the ad? The guy. You don't remember if it was a can or if it was a bottle of Coke Light. Your brain didn't register that part. You registered the music, registered the guy, how handsome he was. Coke knows this. I'm not telling you a story about my product. I'm telling you a story that uses my product. In the same way that Apple doesn't tell you a story about the iPad, it tells you a story about how someone uses the iPad. There's always a protagonist. The guy in the office, the people at the office. In the case of Apple that we just saw, the band, the audience, the people that are listening to that, the people that are seeing the music being recorded live. Those are the protagonists. It has to have, and I always stress this, your protagonist of any story has to have a name and a last name. It has to have a story. You have to be able to tell me what is the day of your protagonist. The question I told this customer of mine, it was pretty simple, is tell me one day in the life of one of your users. Why? Because your users are your protagonists. If you're unable to tell me the backstory of any of your users, then you're not understanding what market are you in. It's as simple as that. Storytelling is a reflection of how much you know about your business. Now, name, last name, and story of your protagonist. The second thing about storytelling is that stories are, as I said before, they're about emotions. But most of that, it's not just emotions, but it's the fact that there's a reason to tell a story. The protagonist has a desire that wants to reach. Maybe it's happiness, maybe it's being rich, maybe it's having my face on the cover of Fortune magazine, whatever it is, there is a desire from the protagonist to do it. Which translates, there has to be a fucking reason to tell the story. You just don't tell a story for the sake of telling a story. I once had a startup that started going like, oh yeah, well, let me tell you a story of my grandma. We used to go, to the outskirts of our city, and during the summer days, I'll go there on the weekends, and we'll go searching for strawberries. And we'll spend these amazing days there really early in the morning. And both of us together, and we had a generational gap, but it was that precious moment where, let me tell you about the video games we do. We have this video game that's fantastic, and you can pick strawberries in our video game, and then you can sell them to people. And I was like, what the fuck happened there? Like, you were telling me the story, what happened at what? And you get pissed. And there's nothing worse than a story that backfires. I mean, do not go into storytelling. Do not add stories to your presentations if you haven't tested them. Don't do that. Because as fine as it can be one of the most wonderful resources that you use, if it backfires, oh my God, it backfires in all its glory, okay? So just be sure you've tested, be sure that it works, okay? Now, there has to be a reason to tell a story. This is not about telling a story for the sake of telling a story, but actually to illustrate something. We were before talking about the fact that stories work like memory. So if you want me to remember something, use a story, but use it for that reason. Use it towards that goal, to deliver a tip, to deliver an advice, to deliver wisdom. That's why religions use storytelling. That's why wise people tell you stories, and they don't tell you, kid, you should do this and this and this. No, that's your father or your mother. Your grandpa will never tell you that. So let me tell you the day that I had this with your father. And he will go into storytelling mode. Why? Because that's a lot more powerful. And wise people know this, okay? Now, apart from a desire, the fact that the point that stories or why stories work is not just that there's a desire to do something, but that there is plenty of conflict. If people are dying in your story, it's going to be genius, okay? Anna here has a fantastic story because she deals with probably one of the most conflictive situations in our lives, which is deathly illnesses. What is more conflictive than that? And I can tell you, I've listened twice to your pitch, and I've seen people crying every single time. Every single time. Now, the more conflict there is in the story, the better. Sometimes you guys are retarded because you have fantastic stories, and when we go and have some beers, you tell me these amazing stories, and you go like, why have you told this story? And you're telling this boring story about this guy that goes to school, and he opens the door to his place, and the door opens, and I walked into the living room, and my mom is there. Whoa, how conflictive, and I take my homework, and I have an A+, and so my mom is very pleased with me. Whoa, conflict. Now, let me retrace the story. I try to get into my place, and there's a yellow tape that say embargo, and there's a couple of cop cars on the outside. I start coming inside with a police yellow line, come running inside, and I just get into the living room to a pool of blood, okay, and go like, oh my God, where's my mom? Okay, oh no, calm down, there's nothing wrong, just breathe, and you start freaking out, okay? So you start running, you throw your bag around, and finally you see your mom there, and it's, crazy dude that came into your place and died in your place. Conflict. I could put homework somewhere there, okay? But my point is, there has to be conflict. If there's no conflict in the story, it doesn't work, which is the reason why it works so well with the problem-solution structure for a startup pitch. Because if your problem is painful to people, then you probably have a very conflictive story that illustrates it. If there is no pain, or if your problem you're solving is not that painful, it's going to be very hard to find a conflictive story. Okay? But sometimes be smart. You can make stories conflictive if you want. Okay? Number 3, this is what most people will tell you not to do, which is use emotions in your stories. The more emotions, the better. Who can tell me why? What are emotions? What is the one thing that makes emotions so powerful for humans? Take decisions based on emotion. And are those emotions different? Huh? They're common ground. There's the one thing that unites humanity: emotions. You might have a different cultural background. You might have a different education. You might have a different family. You may live in a different country. You might speak different languages. But the one thing that makes you the same to me is that you cry, is that you laugh, is that you're nervous, is that you might be unhappy. Those things are universally human. And that is why they work. Now, careful. Emotions work, but the trigger to our emotions varies between cultures. So Americans might not be happy with the same things that people in China are happy with. You see, feeling, the emotion is the same, trigger is very different. So you have to be smart and always know who your audience is. Place emotions there. Humor, sadness, happiness. You have to take me through a roller coaster of emotions. If you don't do that, there's no story. Fucking boring. Open the door, came to a place the homework. Oh yeah, there's broccoli for breakfast. Ooh, yeah, great. No passion, no emotion there. You know, a lot of the investors always tell me, it's amazing, you know, when we hear you and we hear, you know, startups like yours, because you guys are so full of passion. It's like, yeah, fucker, but then you will ask me for the financial projections, okay? That's where everything goes down the road. So you have to have both. But there's one thing that I keep telling people. Let me go forward here. Oops. Even if you have a lot of data, even if your startup is about, you know, science and has a lot of numbers and you need to explain a lot of things, always remember this. Everybody lies. Most especially investors. Most investors will tell you, I want to see the numbers. And then you're sitting next to them and you're seeing all the presentations. And when the presentation with the amazing emotional story pops on the stage, they go like, oh, wow. And then the fuckers go like, yeah, that was amazing. I'm going to give them a 10. And the other guys that they told them, you should put a table. They go like, that presentation was boring, you know, full of numbers, couldn't feel the passion. And you go like, you motherfucker. You just told them to put those numbers. But then when it comes to valuing this, when it comes to resonating with you, surprise, surprise, story resonates with you. Okay? So always remember, even if they tell you, I want to see the numbers, definitely put the numbers, but make sure you have the stories right, because that's what's going to generate the impact, not the numbers, except very high numbers, okay? Most of you don't have them, so why say it? So remember, there's a logical chronology to this. First question I'm going to have when I come on stage is, who the fuck are you? Why should I care? Problem. Oh, okay, I see the problem. It pains me. How are you going to solve this? You smart ass? Oh, we have this solution. Oh, yeah, but is there any money in this problem that you put? Oh, actually, there's a lot of money. Oh, yeah, well, if there's a lot of money, then probably you're not alone. So how are you going to be better than Microsoft at earning that money? Okay, this is how we're going to be different with our technology. Okay, I see that, but I don't really see, if you're going to go against Twitter, how you're going to make money. Okay, let me explain to you how we're going to make money, business model. Now, yeah, you said you're going to charge 2,000 euros per person. How are you going to do that? How are you going to find those wealthy people? Okay, let me explain to you our strategy and our plan to reach those people. Now, okay, I believe, if at that point I believe all of that, now who else is with you? Because to do all those things that you just told me, you need a lot of very smart people. Okay, let me introduce you to the smart people that work with me, my team. Now, at the very end is, okay, so how far are you on what you're saying? You know, you have the team, you have the ideas, you have the solution, so how far are you? How far? Well, I'll give you the milestones. Two. Now, okay, but this looks to me that's still too small. Oh, okay, let me explain to you our future projections. This is how big we're going to be. Okay? And finally, always remember that that pain point is there, that this is the name of my company, that if you do storytelling, you should call me, the guy with the hat, which is not wearing today, but I normally wear it. Okay? Final call to action. You see that there's a logical structure? You can switch some of them. You, for example, could talk about competitors instead of market, or technology in before competitors. That sometimes depends on the story you're telling. Sometimes the story speaks to you, and it basically forces you to talk about technology first and then competitors. Doesn't matter, as long as there's a logical connection here, okay? Remember, protagonist, desire, objective, conflict, and emotions, okay? It's the key for creating great storytelling. And without any more stuff, if you want, I have 3 more slides of recommendations, more on the design part of the presentations. So if you want me to put them, I'll put them. If you want to run and leave, you're free to do that. So you want me to go on? 3 slides, just 3 slides, I promise. Careful. Things not to do, design-wise. What the fuck is that? Ugly freaking image. No, there's advice for everyone. Google, search tools, image, big. Okay? And that never happens again. Okay, so that means I took an icon and I just stretched it all the way across the screen and you can see the pixels. Horrible. That actually translates, especially for people that are high-tuned to design, that translates to being lazy. Everything in your presentation tells something about you. So that means you're being lazy. For God's sake, watermarks, if you can avoid them, please. I've seen people giving TEDx talks with a big image on the screen, with a freaking cross around it, with a watermark. And I'm like, you are freaking kidding me, right? Don't do that if you can avoid it, okay? There's plenty of free images with shareable copyright and shareable Creative Commons, okay? For God's sake, 2 things. The day that Sesame Street taught us the color palette, none of us were there. Okay? And this is truth, especially for technical people. We technical people only see VGA, 16 colors. Okay? Don't go fancy with colors. Don't. You're going to screw it for sure. So the day they explained to you that using yellow letters is horrible, you weren't there. But they told you that. They said it to the class. So don't use that. White over black, black over white. Don't go too far from there. You want to use some colors, use one, okay? Don't go full rainbow on me, okay? You can see a lot of presentations where you put the first slide, fucking rainbow, and you're just wishing to see a freaking unicorn at some point. It's like, come on, dude. Like, and not only freaking rainbow, but they're actually using these colors that are so bright that you cannot even read them. It's like, is that a green and it means blah, 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 and this really bright yellow too against a white background? It's like, dude, sometimes I do the exercise. I sit here and I go, that's the name of your startup, isn't it? They go like, yeah. Can you read it from here? Not really. And I go, then why the fuck have you put it there? Okay, change the colors, please. Don't go fancy. Trust me. Then, for God's sake, there's this thing that's called fonts. There's this beautiful field that's called typography. Okay? Do not fucking use Comic Sans. Do not fucking use Times New Roman. Don't fucking use Arial. There's a lot of beautiful fonts out there. Use them. Actually, one of the most powerful design tools that you have are different kind of fonts. Trust me. They create a lot more impact than the images. Well-chosen fonts and typography can convey an emotion that most images cannot. Okay? So it's a combination. Sometimes people go like, oh, dude, your slides are so nice. It's like what you don't see is that the letters that I'm using, the fonts that I'm using, are also influencing how you're perceiving this. So fonts are easy. Well, they're not easy. I mean, they're hard because you normally install like 200 fonts, and then you have to go through that tiny screen where you go like, the fuck, how is this one different to that one and different to that one, okay? So my advice, grab 10 different fonts and play with them. Just 10, you don't need more, okay? Sometimes in a presentation, you're only using 2 types of fonts, but you've played with 10, and each one of those 10 convey a different emotion or a different expression, okay? So you use it, if you want to put a slide where it's like high impact, I want to scream, I use a bigger font. If I want to put something that's a minimalistic notion, I use a thin font, okay? And font typography speaks to you after a while, okay? Huh? Yeah. Exactly. You can use different families within the same font. I mean, that's but people don't know that. People don't know that there's like, you know, italics and black and stuff like that. This is a list of things not to do. This normally I advise people to take a picture and print it. And when you're running your startup pitch, make sure you tick and say check, check, not doing it, not doing it, not doing it. I go very fast around it. This is last slide. Do not put more than 3 words per slide. Never, ever, ever, ever. If you put more than 3 words on a slide, you're going to read them. And people are going to see that. Text on a slide is not meant to be read. It's a cue for you to know what to talk about. But it's not there to aid you in your presentation. It's not there to turn around and say, okay, so this is our prototype of blah, 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 blah. It's not for that. Okay, it's a cue. You just read a word and you know what you want to talk there. That's it. You can even go extremely minimalistic and not use a single word. I'll tell you, I've done that several times. It's extremely problematic for 2 reasons. The first one is if you take your slides 1 month later and you go scrolling, you don't know what you wanted to say there. And of course, me being me, I don't have comment or notes, so I don't even know what I wanted to say there. Now, the second reason why you shouldn't do that is because then when you upload it to places like SlideShare, people will complain that there is no video and they cannot follow the beautiful images, but I don't know what you were talking about. It's like, yeah, fair point, okay? Don't put shit images that pixelate or tiny ones. We've gone through that. Don't put graphs without a source. This is so fucking typical. Fantastic graph. What's your source? I don't remember now. It matters. It matters that the source was a survey we did with our friends, or the source comes from VentureBeat or from the Wall Street Journal. It matters, okay? Put your contact information on the last slide. People keep forgetting this. I don't know if you've seen, but there was my contact information on every single slide on the footer. Specifically the Twitter. Because there's this thing that when you like a startup, people on the audience are going to go like, whoa, this startup is amazing. And you know what's the first thing they're going to do is they're going to pull their phones, if they don't have it already on their hands, and they're going to tweet about this. Now, if I have to guess your Twitter handler, chances are very, very high, guilty of charge, I'm going to invent your Twitter handler. And then I'm going to get a tweet from you saying, no, 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 our handler is actually this one. Like, too late, man. You should have put it on the slides. Okay, so be smart. Be smart. It's an opportunity. Every slide is an opportunity for someone to tweet about your startup. Use it, okay? Don't put weird color combinations. Stick to white and black. Don't use tiny fonts or leave white space available. I see a lot of startups that they have this tiny font there and all the space around it. It's like, you're not fucking Chinese. You're not doing Zen painting here, okay? You're not getting into Tao and Taoism. So please, make it big, because people at the back need to read it. And if you don't make it big, they're not going to be able to read it. Even if it's just 3 words. If you're going to put a number, like this month we made 50K. Well, I want to see a 50K that basically fits on the whole screen. That's what I want to see. Because no matter where I am, I'm going to read that. 50K. Good point. Do not do live demos. This is very controversial. There's some competitions and some conferences that will ask you for live demos. My personal opinion, don't do them. If you can, don't do them, because chances are very, very high that you will fuck the live demo, for sure. And no matter how many times you tried it, okay, it's just amazing because you go, and I have people that go like, we tried it 3 times and it worked. It's been working in the morning, it's been working during lunch, and it's been working last night. I'm like, yes. Have you tested that with 5,000 idiots that are using 3 devices each? Oh, maybe not. No, but you know, they've told us that they have 3 gigabytes of bandwidth. I said, like, the bandwidth is not the problem. The problem is so many devices connecting at the same time. Any Wi-Fi network is going to crash down. Even cable is going to crash at some point. So if you're relying on a live demo, connecting to the internet, live music, stuff like that, don't. If you want to play something, if you want to play a video, if you want to play music, make sure that's on your laptop. Make sure that it's on the local hard drive, okay? Because if not, and even in those cases, I would advise against that. You want to put a demo of your product, put screenshots and animate the screenshots. Go boom, 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 screenshot after screenshot, and basically create the movie with the screenshots. You actually have a better chance of, first of all, not failing, but second of all, having a much better control on the demo. What happens with most video demos is that the video starts playing and you go really slow, and that's number 8. If you use video, time it or have it narrated, because sometimes the video goes too fast, and you see too many starters going, blah, 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 blah. The video keeps going, and it goes too fast. They have to pause it again, blah, 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 blah. So if you're going to use video, first of all, local cache video, make sure you've timed it. Make sure that if you're doing practice at home, you add an extra 2 minutes to it or something like that, or twice the time it took you, because you're going to be nervous. And there's two things to nervous people. First one is they're either speak really fast and they go like blah, 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 and they'll have 2 more minutes and go like, I'm done. Or they'll get really nervous, they'll get blocked, and it will take twice the amount of time that you plan. So be aware of this. Don't rely on the internet. Don't put tables full of numbers. We're visual creatures. If I see a table, I want to take my eyes with a spoon, because there's a very simple reason not to put tables on a visual presentation. I'm not talking about a presentation you're going to send to the investors, but actually a presentation you're going to defend on a stage. Is it goes so fast that there is no time for anyone in the audience to go through the table or data. It's too much data for the short time span that you have during the presentation. So put graphs. Visual images are so much easier to understand with a hindsight, with a quick image, okay? Don't use 3D graph. I know they look very nice and shiny, but when you are at the back of the room, you don't read shit. Try reading a 3D pie chart and you'll see what I mean. It's really hard to see the differences. Now, you really want to use graphs to show data, to show differences in and relationships between parts, which means that I need to be able to read it. So don't go the 3D route, because even though it might look fancier, it's not that useful. Okay, it's a kind of thing where you used to see all these presentations with all these colors, and you go like, rainbow colors, not that useful. Using one different color in your presentation, useful because it allows you to highlight things. Multiple colors defeats the purpose. Okay. Number 12, don't use fancy transitions. Okay, I'm sick of having the freaking Mac going clack, 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 and the fucking cube going around. And it's not just the fact that it's annoying, which it is, but most importantly and more rationally speaking is the fact that chances are your presentation is going to run in a different computer. Now, if your Mac is super powerful and makes the transition very smooth, nothing happens. Now, if you put the same presentation on a 2008 laptop, like most conferences have, you know what's going to happen? Someone has a guess? Nothing. Which is very funny. It's actually hilarious, because what happens is I click on the clicker and nothing happens. So I panic. And because I panic, I click 50 more times. And so the 2008 laptop suddenly goes like, oh shit. And the slides go like, and you go like, oh shit. You click once back. And of course, it doesn't response. So you click 50 more times. So you go back to your first slide, and you waste valuable time. Okay, so it's not just the fact that it's annoying, it's the fact that you risk problematic situations when it comes to transitions, okay? So keep it very simple. Keep it next slide, next slide, next slide. Nothing fancy. You want to do different objects appearing in the same screen, like the next scene, okay? You just break the image into, you copy and paste the same slide 5 times, and you keep removing stuff to do like a motion picture, okay? It's that simple. Nothing fancy here. Do not add graphs with no axis titles, for God's sake. Tell me, are those bananas? Are those, what am I looking at? This is so common. I mean, one day I'm actually going to do the probabilities of how many times I've seen this happening. Every freaking time someone puts a graph, there is no title. There's no title of the graph, which I don't know what I'm looking at, but then there's no title on the axis, so I don't even know what I'm looking at. My intuition tells me that I'm looking at time dimension versus money or something like that, but I have no idea. Of course, this relates to number 14, which is, for God's sake, use freaking units. If you put numbers on the graph and you say this is the amount of investment we've received, how about putting units? Is it dollars? Is it euros? It actually matters, you know? Euros and dollars are not the same. Yens are not the same, okay? So it matters. It definitely matters. Units. Some people actually put maybe 100. For God's sake, if those are 1,000 euros, put it 100 and then scale in 1,000 euros. It's not that hard. Okay, but remember it, because most people fail to put these things, and it screws your presentation as something so stupid, because it's so stupid and so easily fixed. Now, I don't have it here because it's so obvious that I shouldn't talk about this, but I do it myself, so I repeat it. Click on the spell checker. Okay? I know it's stupid, but we don't do it. And then you see your screen and you go like, fuck. And someone tweets, you got this word wrong. And you go like, yeah. And you look like a retard, okay? And it's so easy to fix. And I'm guilty of charge, I can tell you that. You know, I was changing some of those slides and saw one of the words, I'm like, shit. Okay, so it happens. But if you can avoid it, put the spell checker on, okay? Well, this is all of me. And you have my details here, my email, the blog. In the blog, you have a lot of content related to slides, how to create a good presentation, how to create design presentations. Go through it if you want. There's a lot of don't-dos, problems with stories, things like that, and examples, okay? You have my email if you need anything. We'll hopefully see each other this week and next week on my Twitter. And questions? Sure, I can't believe this. There you go, thank you. That's a very great comment. We are redesigning a website on Press 42, and one of the things we've added is a video from a TED Talk from which is where I took the joke of the Scottish guy from the director of WALL-E and Finding Nemo and Toy Story. And at one point in the presentation, he talks about his experience writing WALL-E and how, for him, in 2008, that was like, he took everything he knew about storytelling and he put it together and he created WALL-E. And he said, non-verbal communication is the most hard, or the hardest act of communicating that there is, because we do it naturally, and doing it on purpose is extremely hard, especially with animation. And he said, the trick about storytelling is not telling you that 2 + 2 is 4. It's actually telling you 2 + 2. And letting you do the math. And so you're not conscious that you're doing the math. And that's the magic of storytelling. I'm making you do all the work, but you're not realizing that. So go something like that. It's very hard to do that, to be honest. I'm always very honest with you guys. Storytelling is not the kind of thing that people think it is. Most people think that I can just hack a story the day before the event, and it just doesn't work like that. It takes a long time to work. I've had cases where startups had purchased, they spent a lot of money doing a video with the voiceover of very famous people, like professional dubbers. And they played me the video after one of these talks, and they said, "What do you think? What do you get out of the video?" And I said, "Well, this, and this." And the co-founder that was next to him, he was like, no, that's all wrong. That's not what we wanted to tell. And I said, like, you guys are stupid. How is it that you recorded this thing without trying it? And people do this all the time. So they think that you just can hack a script and just record something and put it out there and it works. It doesn't. I mean, it requires a lot of work around it. And even the most simple stories, like you see Wally and you think, wow, that's simple. You know, they don't talk. So that's super simple. Simple is the hardest part of any art. Everything that, when someone talks about your startup or your product and goes like, oh, that's simple, you go like, yeah, fucker, simple. Yeah, it just took us 15 years to get here, but yeah, simple. But I once had another startup that they had the problem that people wouldn't understand what they were doing. And because I have a technical background, I got what they were building, and I said, but you do such a terrible job at explaining this. And so I told him what he should change. And it was for a competition in another conference. And he didn't follow through. He said, we don't have time, we'll run with it. They lost the competition, and we met again like 2 months later, we met at another conference in Romania. And he came to me, he said, now we're going to listen. And I'm like, dude, okay. So we sat down, we changed it. He pitched. And what happened was, one of the investors that was sitting on the jury raised his hand and said, you know, it was good, but I think you spent too much time explaining what your product is about. I mean, it's pretty clear for everyone what it does. And so when the guy came down from the stage, I was gonna say, dude, I'm sorry, you know, we overdid it. But what he did, he actually grabbed me, he hugged me, and he said, thank you so much. Finally, people get this. And I said, well, maybe we did it too much, you know, maybe we have to cut down a little bit. But the truth is that when it works, people say, oh, this is very simple. It's like, yeah, you don't see the effort and the amount of time you spend trying to make that as simple as possible. So yeah, do agree with you. Extremely difficult to do that. Well, I'll tell you another story about that. I once was in Frankfurt, and I was working for 2 companies there. I was working for Deutsche Bank, and I was working for a very highly technical company. Very, very technical, and they were doing super smart AI things. I came to the company and I asked the same question, like, what does your product solve? And I could never get an answer to that. So I said, okay, let's work this. And I could see the problems that we're having. They were creating such a smart AI that people didn't want to work with it. Because they clearly saw, the employees clearly saw that if I teach that AI what I know, they're going to kick me out of the company. So of course people didn't want to work with it. People in the company couldn't see this. It was so technologically advanced that no one could see this. So I did an experiment. I said, okay, what you're going to do is you're going to figure out a metaphor that explains what your product is doing. And so one of the chief marketing persons there, she came out with this metaphor. She said, well, if I had to explain this to my mom, I would tell her that this is like a robot that you have at home that will clean your house. So you won't need to do the dishes anymore. You won't need to go for groceries anymore. You won't need to do the bed anymore. The robot will do it for you. And as she was saying this, she suddenly stopped and she said, "Oh my God, my mom is going to hate this." And I asked her, like, say, why? And she said, well, my mom, even though she keeps, getting grumpy about this, and she's always grumpy about, oh, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to do that. But in the end, that's her life. That's her day. That's what she does. If you remove that from her, she will feel empty, and she won't want the robot. And she suddenly made this connection, and she said, oh my God, that's what our customers are feeling like. I said, like, exactly. You finally get it. So my point is, even with highly industrialized technologies and products, you can always put it into a plane where everyone can at least relate to it, which is what you want. You want people to relate to something. If they don't know the industry, place them in a story plane that they do understand. Family, traditional things about your culture, things that you know that they've gone through, that you know that anyone in that country or in that culture has gone through. That's going to be way easier to explain. Then, of course, you need to draw a bridge back to your technology, but that's easier when they actually have a grasp on what's the end goal, what's the major pain point you're trying to solve there. Okay? More questions? I like it very much. I think it's what you should be doing. This is, for example, what I was talking about in terms of being different. Engaging with the audience is super valuable, especially if you engage with the people you know they're going to put your mark. So this is where I always tell people, be smart. If you know who the jury is going to be, research them. See if they have kids. See if they had brothers, sisters. Research what their professions are. Because with that information, then you can do a role play with them much better. And you actually know what they're going to answer you. You have to be careful. You have to have a very clear idea what the audience is going to answer. Because if you go like, okay, guys, so if I ask you this question, what are you going to say? And people answer the exact opposite of what you want, then you're screwed, okay? And so you have to be, but I love it. I think it's one of my favorite things to engage people. This is not passive. This is not me talking. I want you to be drawn into my presentation. You can even take it way further, and you can actually bring someone on stage. I've seen startups that bring someone on stage. I've done that sometimes. I'm talking about something, I'll bring two people from the stage, I'll put them on stage, and I'll start doing a role play. And it has such a high impact on people because they're not expecting that. And not only that, they're not expecting that people do what you think they're going to do. And it recently happened with one of my customers that we were discussing about a message, and they were like, no, but this is a message of our company, and this is what we're going to do. I said, okay, wait a second. Went out of the meeting room, went to the next door. There was another startup next door. I opened the door and said, how many of you here are around 30? The two guys lifted their hands and said, come with me. And they looked at me like, what do you need from us? And I said, like, it's going to be very quick. Came into the meeting room, brought the two guys, wrote the word on the whiteboard, and said, 1, 2, 3, what comes to your mind? And they started boom, 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 boom. I said, okay, how old are you? 27. How old are you? 30. Okay, great, you can leave. And they were like, what was this about? Nothing. Turned around, looked at the CEO of the company, and the CEO was like, holy shit. And I said, okay, point taken. I mean, he wasn't expecting for the guys to, he was expecting the guys to write on the board what he was thinking. And he got in shock because it was quite the opposite. So those situations are very, very powerful. But again, you have to be very careful and know how people are going to respond. Okay, but take it the extra mile. Bring people on stage. Bring animals on stage. Bring investors on stage. Anything that does that. I've seen people that what they do, I remember once the CEO of meetup.com, and he came to a talk, and his slides, I think it was his second slide, was a picture, was a photo he just took outside of the presentation before coming in. And I thought that was so cool. I mean, it's like so in shock. Like, oh my God, that was just like, what, 15 minutes ago? And the guy redid the presentation to put that image there. And it generates this very powerful impact. I've done this with courses. Sometimes I take pictures of the audience, and then when I'm talking about building teams, I put a picture of the guys in front, and I put them, this is a good example of a team. And people were like, oh my God, it's us. Hey, Mom. Hey, Dad. I'm on the screen. It works. It works. All this kind of engagement with the audience via Twitter, via video, via emails, previous emails, putting them on stage is super powerful. Then again, it's also hard to do and to control sometimes. So, but yeah, definitely go for it. And in your case, it's very powerful resource. But that makes a difference with the other presentations. What else? We had someone around there before? No? No more questions? Are you sure? You're gonna regret this. Yes, you can. And in 4 minutes too. I once had the Wire guys. They said, the teams. They said, "Huh, dude, you keep talking about storytelling and telling stories and saying this 10 points in 5 minutes, but they give us 4 minutes." And I was like, and smartass said, "Come on, you do it." And I was like, "What? You do it." And first I went like, "You motherfucker." I said, "Okay, bring it on." I got someone with a clock. I did it in 3 minutes, 28 seconds. It's actually recorded. And the Wire guy said, like, thank God we record that, because now every time someone tells us that this is not possible, we're going to play your video. Like, it wasn't even prepared, to be honest. I mean, it was pretty lousy, but compared to what they were expecting, it was okay. So you can, in 3 minutes, 28 seconds, actually. Without running. You just need to practice a lot. But you can. I mean, that's why I'm telling you, your goal should be to take the presentation to the 4 minute goal. To give you extra 1 minute to get nervous. Okay? Play with that. If you manage to fit it in 4 minutes, that's okay. Make sure you don't spend, I mean, it's a matter of rhythm and making sure you don't spend too much time on specific parts, and you always have to keep in mind, like with slides, like 30 seconds per slide. You keep moving and you keep moving and you keep moving. Don't get stuck there, okay? Yeah, I believe so. I think so. It's 5 minutes plus Q&A. 4? 4 plus Q&A. Hi. More questions? No? Sure? Well, before you leave, I hope this was clear. You have my email if you have any questions. I really, really expect you to change the presentations for this week. So, no, but this is, to be honest, is for your own advantage. You have a big opportunity of sitting down with someone that has seen a lot of this stuff, and I do this because I want to help you. Okay, so the more advanced you have it, the better it's going to be. The easier it's going to be for me to help you out. And the more iterations we go around, the better it's going to get. And to be honest, in the end, when you go on the stage, the winner is not the one that has the best technology. The winner is the one that has the best technology and is the best at explaining it. And sometimes you'll see people with worse technology than yours winning these things. Why? Because they're masters at explaining this on stage. So do not underestimate the power of doing this right. You do this right, and of course you have the right product, you'll kill it. Even if you don't win, people will take notice, and people will talk to you. So remember, bring your business card. Thank you very much, guys.
Dans la semaine du présent, je ferme les yeux, je prends mon temps. Ma guitare sonne, ma délivrance, ça gère mon existence.